Hello guys and gals, and welcome. Today I would like to talk about Necromancers. And very specifically, I would like to do an introduction to Necromancers for the new game coming out, Diablo II Resurrected. So there's going to be a lot of new players coming out, and I'm really excited to have new players in the game. And those new players, you know, maybe you got some questions about Necromancer. Maybe you don't exactly know how to play a Necromancer or what to do with it. Well, I'm going to go over that with you today. Now, the first thing we're going to cover is runes. So these are some of the easiest to find runes in the game. If you play a character in normal difficulty up to Act 5, and probably about like the first act of Act 2 and of Act 1 in Nightmare, you'll find these runes. These runes can be used to make some very interesting pieces of equipment, like for instance the Lore Hat with +1 to all skills, the Ancient's Pledge, Rout or Tal, which gives a buku amount of resistances. We also have Spirit, which is a very low level item, gives you some faster run, faster cast rate, faster hit recovery, things like that. And then of course you can make a Rhyme Shield. So I have here a 2-socketed shield, and to demonstrate, we're going to take the Shell Rune, and then we're going to take the Eth Rune, and now we have a Rhyme Tower Shield. So, random pieces of equipment I've just kind of thrown on here. And the reason why I want to do this is because I want to just sort of allow you guys to see, what it takes to put things on. So, for instance, I can put a lot of this stuff on right away. However, I don't have very much strength as a Necromancer. So, let's say, for instance, I wanted to put on this Stark Glow Ringmail. Well, I'm going to need 36 strength. That is about all I would ever ask you or tell you to do when it comes to strength. All right? With a Necromancer, your entire goal is to spend as little points into strength and as little points into dexterity as you possibly can. Now, you can build dexterity so that you will have a higher blocking chance. For instance, let's go ahead and put on the Rhyme Shield. So I'm going to need 75 strength. Let's go ahead and tack on our strength here till we get to 75. Alright, so we've got our 75 strength. Let's go ahead and put our Lore Hat on. And you know what? We don't have much else, do we? Alright, so here we have our Necromancer. He has some crappy gear on, which, okay. We've got our strength points just high enough so we can put our gear on, and then we're looking at, well, do we want our block high enough? Well, on a Necromancer, you really shouldn't be in the battle anyway. But let's say, for instance, that you did want your block percentage up on your Necromancer. Then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to build your dexterity. Dexterity, really the only purpose of dexterity is to get your block percentage up. As you can see, the higher that I build my dexterity, the higher my block chance. So we're going to go ahead and beef that up to, let's say I want to be a tanking Necromancer. It really doesn't matter. So we got 75% is our cap. So we're going to go ahead and build that until we hit 75. And there we go, 249 defense, 75% block chance. So we're doing pretty good. All right, now I'm going to put a couple points into energy here just so that I have the mana to actually do some things. But I'll explain that in a second. All right, now the majority of your points, almost all of your points, are going to go into Vitality. And the reason why the majority of your points are going to go into Vitality is because health is really the most important thing in Diablo 2. You need to be able to take those hits. When a monster comes at you and swings his sword and does 400 damage, you need to have 400 health to actually absorb that hit. Otherwise, you're going to die. So essentially, once you have gotten, your strength where it needs to be so you can put on your equipment, your dexterity where it needs to be so you have your block chance where you want it to be, and your energy where it needs to be so that you can actually cast your spells. And granted, as a Necromancer, you don't really need much. In fact, you can pretty much just carry around mana potions. And your vitality, dump everything else you got into your vitality. Alright, so on the Necromancer, there are many different ways that you can build. So let's go over some of these ways. There is a poison tree. This entire tree is based on poison. So we have our poison dagger, we have our poison explosion, and then we have our poison nova. So as a poison necromancer, you're going to beef up all three of these. Let's go ahead and put 1 point into each one of these just so that we have them. In fact, we're going to go ahead and put 1 point into everything so I can show you the spells. Bink, bink, bink. I would never advise putting 1 point into everything. It's just silly, and it's a waste of points. But 1 point into everything for the purposes of showing you all is very nice. Alright, and in fact, what we're going to do here real quick is I'm going to go ahead and... Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and give my character 20 to all skills. And the reason why we're going to do that is just simply because I want you guys to see what all these skills can do. Alright, so we're going to go set to 20. You guys can't see what I'm doing, but that's okay. We're going to go to Nightmare. And now I have 20 to all my skills. Alright. And I'm going to just go ahead and show you kind of what these do. So as a poison necromancer, I don't have a dagger on me. Guess I could always go in town and buy one. Hold on.
Oh, hi there.
Give me a dagger. Ooh, there's a Chris. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and slot a dagger. Might as well grab one of those other shields while I'm at it. Grab Saigon's Guard. Alright, so let's go over here and let's stab something. Alright, so we've got our poison dagger, and most likely if we were a poison necromancer, we'd probably also have our poison nova out. So here's our poison nova. As you can see, horrible, horrible, painful death. And we stab somebody, they get poisoned as well. And then the third skill in this tree is poison explosion. And that works with corpses. Causes the corpse to explode and make a poison cloud, which poisons everybody nearby. So for instance, let me lure these unsuspecting victims. And as you see, both of them are dead. A very good defensive skill that necromancers have, which only absorbs melee damage, is bone armor. As you can see at max, it absorbs 830 damage, which is a pretty healthy amount of damage, but it's not elemental. It's only physical. So therein lies an issue. You can also use these skills for defensive purposes. Bone wall, bone armor, and bone prison are all linked together intrinsically. Bone prison only works specifically on a target. So for instance, we have a target right here. See, now he is in prison. It's just a very nice skill to use to save yourself the hassle of having to deal with the monsters. You can also use Iron Maiden on them and cause them to hurt themselves while they're attacking the wall. And they will actually kill themselves trying to break the wall down. Now, Iron Maiden does not work very effectively in Hell, and that is unfortunate. But Iron Maiden is very good at, was very good at killing players. The Oblivion Knights in Act 4, River of Flame, cast Iron Maiden and were responsible for many a melee character's death. Now, poison necros are cool and all, but you're going to need some way to defend yourself. You're probably going to want to put a point into one of the golems. So, for instance, let me go ahead and grab some potions here real quick so I can actually cast spells.
What do you need?
You have multiple choices for golems. You can go with the fire golem. Why is it doing that to me? The fire golem requires too much mana for me to cast.
I need mana.
260 mana total. Now, generally, this isn't an issue because a lot of the times you have what I would call tons of plus to mana from your equipment, plus to energy from your equipment. As you build your character, you're going to notice that even if you don't put any points into energy at all, you will still end up with more mana, more energy in general. Right, so here we have the clay golem. And the clay golem can, go ahead. He can run ahead of me. He can fight some monsters. So that I can sit in the back and be a little poison spammer. Alright. Now, another way that you can build your Necromancer is you can do an entire summoning Necromancer. Now, there is a lot to talk about when it comes to a summoning Necromancer, and also how you build your summoning Necromancer to make him the most effective. I would recommend that you start out with Raised Skeleton. Put 20 points into Raised Skeleton and 1 point into Skeleton Mastery. Alright? And the reason for this is because the number of skeletons is more important than the quality of the skeletons. And it's only by a little bit anyway. So as you increase the number of skeletons, you'll actually do far more damage and you'll have more health than if you build like skeletons and skeleton mastery together. But then once you hit 20 on skeletons, you're going to build 20 into skeleton mastery as well. You're going to get one of the golems, whichever one is the one you want. You're also going to grab golem mastery, 1 point. And then you're going to put a couple points into summon resist so that your summons do not die horribly in painful balls of fire. And once you have your little army running, you can pretty much just sit back and relax as they kill everything. Now, granted, you need your entire army up to be effective, and sometimes it takes a little while to build your army. I would recommend that you get a curse of some type to help out your army. One of the easiest ones to get is Amplify Damage, which is 100% extra damage to all targets. Now, granted, it has a very small radius at first, and this is an issue because it's really sucky. Let's go ahead and get our full army running here. It wouldn't be a Necromancer video without a full army. So we have 9 skeleton warriors, we have 9 skeleton mages. Alright, we have our golem. And then after you've built your skeleton archer, your skeletons, your skeleton mages, and your golem, which you don't necessarily need to put that many points in the golem, just have him high enough so he's useful. Then you can start building revives. So revives are actually monsters. So you're actually resurrecting the revive and you're bringing them back to fight for you. You can have up to 22 revives, which is a fairly large army, but they only last 180 seconds per revive, and the timer starts as soon as you revive them. So as you can see, I have a fairly large army already, and I'm just rolling through Nightmare, just having fun. I cast my little Amplify Damage on them, and just let them have fun murdering things. Now, there are a lot of curses. We have Amplify Damage, Dim Vision, Weaken, Iron Maiden, Terror, Confuse, Life Tap, Attract, Decrepify, and Lower Resist. Decrepify, Lower Resist, these are two that you really want to pay attention to. Decrepify is basically just a better version of Amplify Damage. A much, much better version. It still does the 100%, but it also slows the targets down and weakens them as well. And then Lower Resist lowers the resistances of the monsters the same way that Conviction does on the Paladin. So for instance, if a monster had 50% fire resist, they would have negative 13% fire resist with this particular spell on them. Now this would come in handy for a character like a for a character like a poison necro, because it's going to reduce the resistances to poison as well. Very, very handy. We also have this interesting ability, which is Attract. So Attract is a very simple curse that causes all monsters nearby to attack the target. It doesn't really have any purpose in solo. Not really. But in a group setting, imagine, if you will, you have 8 players, you know, you're one of the 8, so 7 other players, and you're in the middle of a fight, and one of your teammates is dying. He's getting attacked by like 18 Venom Lords at once or something. You cast Attract on one of the Venom Lords. All the nearby Venom Lords attack the one that you've cursed, allowing your Paladin or Barbarian or whatever it is to escape safely. It's a very useful one-hit wonder. Or one-point wonder, I should say. We also have Confuse, which is not really as useful, but I mean, if you cast it on a group, they start attacking each other. You have the Dim Vision, which I always found to be quite useful. It makes it very difficult for them to see anything and target anything. Didn't mean to do that. Alright, so other forms of Necromancers that you can make. Another very popular one is what's called a Bone Necromancer. So Bone Necromancers tend to build Bone Spirit, Bone Spear, Teeth, Bone Armor, Bone Wall, Bone Prison, etc. And the reason for that is because they have synergies which stack. So for instance, if you look at Bone Spear gets bonuses from Bone Wall and Bone Prison. Bone Spirit gets bonuses from Bone Wall and Bone Prison. Bone Armor gets bonuses from Bone Wall and Bone Prison, and so forth and so on. So the entire bone tree, so to speak, is kind of tied together. So there's 2 major skills in the bone tree. One is Bone Spear, and the other is Bone Spirit. And they really have their own advantages. So Bone Spirit is a single target damage attack. It does damage to one target and one target only. Boom. Bone Spear does less damage than Bone Spirit, but hits multiple targets in a piercing line. So as you can see here, I can hit 1, 2, 3, 4 targets at once, especially if I line them up in advance. Now, Bone Spear, Bone Spirit, they can both be built alongside of, for instance, a Summoning Necromancer. There are many hybrid builds that involve having, you know, a decent amount of Bone Spear and Bone Spirit damage, while also having a decent number of summons to stay alive, basically for you to hide behind and, you know, dish out your damage. Also, you're going to want to grab a Merc. So, in general, mercenaries on Necromancers are amazing because of how well they synergize with all of your group. One in particular that works really well with Necromancer is the Might one. Where is he at? I believe he's Combat, isn't he? No, wait. Combat is Thorns. Offensive is Holy Freeze. I can't remember which one Might is. Boop. All right, here we go. Offensive Nightmare Might. There we go. So the offensive Nightmare version gives out a Might aura, which will help out your entire group of monsters. Why would I suggest not to get Holy Freeze? Well, the reason why I would suggest not to get Holy Freeze is because as a Necromancer, you tend to absorb bodies. That is one of the things that you do. And a Holy Freeze Merc is going to destroy most of those bodies because cold damage causes the monsters to fall into a shattered pile. One of the best Necromancers that you can possibly make is a Corpse Explosion Necromancer. And let's see if I can show you why. So let's go somewhere where we have a lot of monsters. I'm going to go ahead and get some bodies first. I'm in the block cycle. It's a good thing to know I'm blocking. Got a ring and a sparkling ball. Pick up some potions. Alright, so let's get our little army together. We're just going to make a bunch of skeletons here. Alright, well, let's get ourselves a clay golem. I actually had the mana to cast anything. And what I want to show you is how amazing, in particular, Corpse Explosion is. So, for instance, we have a bunch of monsters right here. I'm going to take Corpse Explosion. That's not really a good example because they all died too fast. Alright, let's go over here to one of these big groups. I want to get the biggest group that I can. Alright. Now, with the Corpse Explosion Necromancer, the problem is that you have to wait for something to die. Once you find something dead... If I had the mana to actually use Corpse Explosion. Alright, hold on. Let me grab some mana potions real quick. Take just a second. My little army comes with me. So, Corpse Explosion does a percentage-based damage of, depending on the amount of health that the monster has when he died, essentially. So, you know, if he had maximum health of 10,000, then it's going to do anywhere between 70 to 120% of his 10,000. So it could possibly do, you know, like 7,000, or it could possibly do 12,000. So it's an in-between. But the radius on Corpse Explosion goes up with the number of skill points you put into it, to a radius of 9.6 yards. So you can literally just blow up corpses and everything will die. It's very effective in hell, because it doesn't seem like there's any resistance to it. I don't know what kind of damage it is, but it's very high. As you can see, I literally cast it, and everything dies nearby. And the important thing here, though, is that you need corpses. So if in particular you have a merc who is turning your corpses to ice, well, you're not going to have any corpses to corpse explode. As you can see, all of my mercs now have the might aura. I can then, of course, stack on amplified damage. Well, not on that, but I can stack on amplified damage on the targets and make them take even more damage. So their might is stacking on top of the amp, and they're getting their butts kicked. Now this is Nightmare. Obviously, it's not the highest difficulty. Hell difficulty is very slow on Necromancers. If you expect to go quickly in Nightmare on a Necromancer, I don't know what to tell you. It's going to be a slow-going enterprise. Necromancer is one of those interesting classes, though, that I feel like has a lot of variety in the way that they can be built. You know, you could build a poison Necromancer that uses summoning. You could build a summoning Necromancer that uses bone. You could build a bone Necromancer that has an array of curses. You know, you could build a Golem Necromancer that uses bone spirit. You could build your Necromancer in a variety of ways and still make them useful, and it really just depends on what you in particular are trying to accomplish. Granted, I have a very poor dagger, so my poor little poison dagger attack is not so great. But as you can see, the damage is still quite amazing with all the synergies. But that's poison damage. So if I were to take my lower resist, you know, find a target, cast my little lower resist on them. Let's go to, I probably won't be able to hit anything in hell difficulty, but let's go to hell difficulty and see how well our little poison thing does. Let's go somewhere where we don't have to fight an entire group of monsters. His health is going down. Well, they murdered him pretty fast. Let's go ahead and use our Poison Nova. Now, of course, it would be much easier to use my Poison Nova if I had some way to capture them. Like, for instance... And then I could hit them with my little resist. And then I could go ahead and spam my little Nova. Of course, these guys seem to be fairly resistant to poison. That's probably because they're skeletons. And it would help if I had some mana regeneration. You know, some particular way to restore my mana, enough potions so that I could actually do something. This is where something like Bone Spear comes in handy, because Bone Spear can pierce through the targets and finish them off. Oh, more scepter. No! Leave me alone! Go grab some more potions. So one of the beautiful things about Necromancer is it's a very non-gear dependent character. You can pretty much do hell naked if that's what you want to do. You can run around, you can build up your skills so that you actually can, you know, dish out damage. You can build your summons, you can build your golems, you can build skills that you can use from far away. And in general, you're not going to have much issue in any difficulty setting. Just simply because your character is not super dependent on his gear. He's more dependent on his skills. One of the things that will help you out a lot, though, is plus to skill points. So if you can get yourself some plus to skill points, that would be helpful. Go ahead and grab our blood golem. Yep, die from poison. Ooh, my resistances are absolute garbage. Pretty much what I expected. In hell difficulty, you have -70 to all resistances, and that's something that you have to be wary of. You're going to have to build your resistances up. Defensively, Necromancers don't really need to be very high defense, but resistances are something that you're going to have, because there are things like Frost Novas and Fire Enchantments and Lightning Enchantments and various things that are going to hit you no matter what that are elemental damage, and you need to have some defense against that element. Got a ring? Bam. Blue. My corpse. Speaking of resistances, Ancient's Pledge is good for that. Gives you like 48 or 43 to all or something like that, or 48 to all and 43 to 1. I I think Necromancer is one of my favorite characters just simply because it's so versatile in the way that you can play it. You know, you can build an entirely passive Necromancer who sits in the back and controls his armies. You can build an offensive Necromancer who is in the thick of things using his, you know, bone spears and bone spirits. You can blow up corpses and focus on, you know, dealing damage that way. You can, you know, you can build a poison Necromancer. You can do any combination of these skills, to be honest. Whatever works for you is honestly going to help tremendously. I hope you enjoyed this little introduction to the Necromancer. I will say that I have had no intention of actually building, you know, giving you a specific build. I don't want to go, you know, this is the piece of equipment that you should use in your main hand, and this is the piece of equipment you should use in your helmet, and this is the piece of equipment you should use in your boots. What I'm trying to do here is give you a general roundabout direction to go in, show you all the possibilities, and be like, you know, you'll go for it. Build your Necromancer the way you want to build it, and have fun. Anyway, I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will be doing some more of these. I plan to do one for every class at the very least, and then I may do some more specific videos, like, you know, on specific builds, but that will come after. Anyway, thanks for watching.
He's a little bully. He's a little bully, aren't you? That's a cute little bully.